All right, we have Jeff Pearlman on with us, who wrote a book about Tupac, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lies of Tupac Shakur. I think as a performer myself, it's all rooted in absolute deep insecurity. I do not look at Tupac from back when I would listen to Tupac. I mean, I guess I do occasionally now, but for the most part, I didn't look at him as a super insecure guy. Like, what did you learn about him in that element as a performer? Was it rooted in insecurity at all?
I think it was based more on insecurity brought forth by abject poverty, by his mother's addiction to crack, by spending much of his days living in his youth in Baltimore with rats scurrying up and down the baseboards, showing up at school in thrift store clothing, having bad teeth, not smelling good, girls not being interested in him. Like this background of rejection, poverty, sort of embarrassment, shame, I think fueled a lot of what he was for good and probably for bad too.
I found that with people that come from not a lot, I would even include myself a bit there, is that there are two ways to go. One, like you want to prove everybody wrong, and so you're going to stop at nothing until you do. Or what's actually a lot easier to do is just fall into it and fall into that same system. What was Tupac's relationship with those choices?
Oh, he grew up in New York, moved to Baltimore. He spent his freshman year at Dunbar High School, then found out about the school, the Baltimore School of Performing Arts, and he had to audition. And Tupac had nothing. He wore two pairs of pants. He would rotate his pants. He wore the same crappy thrift store shoes. Everything about him was poor and sad and small. He was small and kind of spindly. And he shows up for this audition and he just knows he's going to nail it. Like he knows, he doesn't think he's going to nail it. He knows he's going to nail it. And he walks into the grand ballroom of the Baltimore School for the Arts, and the four teachers are all sitting there, four white teachers, very stern. And he does a monologue from Raisin in the Sun. And the teachers, when he's done, stand up and applaud for him. And he gets a spot in the School for the Arts. And he knew he was going to. Like he was so driven. He knew he was bigger than what surrounded him. He knew he was more powerful. He knew he had this thing in him. Like he always knew. And I think everything going on around him drove him to be bigger. It was almost like this thing, maybe you've gone through it yourself. You people don't understand what you have in me. Like you don't see it, but I see it. Like he showed up and he's on the stage and he knew it. He just knew it. And I think that was all driven from what he came from.
Was there anything around him that led him to believe that there is a reality in performance? He was on the East Coast, so you're kind of close to New York. Like, how did he know if it wasn't a tangible thing?
Well, it kind of was. So he was in a theater company in New York before he moved to Baltimore as a young teen, and he actually performed at the Apollo Theater at a Jesse Jackson presidential fundraiser in 1984 in A Raisin in the Sun. And he had this moment. He was the first person on stage for the performance. He's in the Apollo Theater. It's filled with people. Jesse Jackson is there. And it's this moment where everything is quiet and you look out and they're all looking at you. And I do think there's something really, really profoundly true about people who always feel ignored and underappreciated, having everyone look at you and have the focus on you and you feel seen. So I would say that moment in particular was a real jolt to him becoming what he became.
And again, just getting into like the fundamental parts of him as a performer, I've found that a lot of performers are, in essence, searching for love because they didn't get it at one point in their life. And that performing on a stage, performing behind a microphone, like you're searching for adulation, for love, to compensate for what you did not have growing up. And I think that's what you're saying. Would that be kind of the reason he did any performance at all?
I think so. I mean, it's really interesting. His mom, Afeni Shakur, was a very famous Black Panther, represented herself in the famous Panther 21 trial when she was pregnant with Tupac, was this civil rights icon. And she was his hero, his absolute hero. And then she became an addict. And he's watching this woman he loves also fall off into a state of disrepair. And all he wants is something in his life that feels real and positive. And the thing he gets is attention. His whole life, the one thing everyone who knew Tupac from the beginning to end fed Tupac more than love, more than money, more than cars, was attention, being looked at, being seen, being heard. I think that's a really powerful driver for a lot of athletes I've written about. I'm sure for a lot of musicians and people you've interviewed as well, this need to be seen and heard. And I think he was a guy who was ignored much as a child, and all of a sudden people are lavishing attention on him.
Then when did it turn to hip hop? When did it turn to I can be a rapper?
I mean, he started rapping when he was in New York on the stoop in the Bronx. Like his mom, his Aunt Glo, all these people would go be upstairs in the apartment smoking weed and talking, and all the kids would be on the stoop. And they're all listening. This is in the Bronx, in New York City, in the 1980s. They're all listening to Curtis Blow, Houdini, Sugar Hill Gang, Run DMC. And he's just rapping on the steps. And he moves to Baltimore and he teams up with a guy named Mouse, and they start rapping. They form a little rap group. And he has this moment, this great, great moment. He's a student in Baltimore, and there's a concert coming to the Baltimore Arena, including Salt and Pepper. And Salt and Pepper's manager is Herbie Lovebug. And they go to this show. It's Salt and Pepper, and it's Heavy D, it's different performers. And they know the performers are all staying at a Comfort Inn, at the Days Inn near the Baltimore Arena. Before the show ends, they decide they're going to go to the Days Inn and show Herbie Love on what they could do. So they rush and they see him walking in, and Tupac walks up to him. Tupac's a teenager, hasn't done anything, bad haircut, crappy clothes, excuse me. And he's like, "Yo, Herbie, this is my crew. Do you want to hear us sing? Do you want to hear us rap? Blah blah blah." He's like, "Yeah, okay." And he's like, "But I got to go up." And he never came back down, right? And Tupac is waiting and waiting and waiting. He's getting more mad and more mad. And finally, he's like, "We're going upstairs." And they spend the night hanging out with the rappers outside their room. Like, he just had that audacity about him. You're going to hear me. Someone's going to hear me. So throughout Baltimore, he's rapping. And then he moves to Marin City, and that's where it takes off in California.
When you do a book like this, obviously you want to talk to the people that knew Tupac and the people that knew Tupac. But when you start, how many people do you think you're going to have to interview? And does that list expand as you're going?
I usually consider you got to go at least 400 on a biography, to me, in my mind. If you don't clear 400 people, I interviewed 652 for this book, so it was deep. And I had extensive time with his sister, with the people who formed him along the way, his different managers, performers, cousins. I had a moment, like the greatest reporting moment of my career, came out of this book. It's a story. I don't know if you want me to tell it or not. But
Yeah, no, tell it. Please do.
Okay, so do you know the song Brenda's Got a Baby?
I do.
Okay. Tupac is filming Juice in New York City. It's 1990. And every day when he was growing up, he would read the New York Times. His mom would read him the newspaper. It was very important to her that he knew what was going on. So every day while filming Juice in New York, a PA would bring him a copy of the New York Daily News. And one day there's an article, and it's Cries in the Night. And it's about a 12-year-old girl who was raped by a cousin, delivered the baby without anyone knowing she was pregnant on the bathroom floor, wrapped the baby up in an odd job bag, plastic bag, threw the baby down the trash chute. And that was the inspiration. Tupac reads this article, says to Omar Epps, I got to go in my trailer. Sits in his trailer, writes the words to Brenda's Got a Baby. Brenda's got a baby. Brenda's barely got a brain. The damn shame. The girl can hardly spell her name. So this song is his first big song. And I decided I really wanted to find the baby who was thrown down the trash heap all those years ago, who inspired this song. And I work with a genealogist named Michelle Sully, who's just incredible. And I told her about this. And one day she's like, "I think I have a number for this guy. His name's Devon." I text, because no one answers their phones. I text this guy Devon, and I'm like, "Hey, by any chance, is this you?" And I attach the article. "My name's Jeff Pearlman." He writes me back. He's like, "Call me tomorrow." Long story, I go to Las Vegas. He lives in Las Vegas. He's 33 years old now. He was the baby at the time. He was the baby who was thrown down the trash heap by Tupac. I'm talking with him about it. Amazing story. Basically, he was adopted after he was thrown down the trash heap. His parents moved to Las Vegas. They died. He does an Ancestry.com search. This is not that long ago. All these tentacles point back to the Noble Drew Ali housing projects in Brooklyn. He reaches out to different relatives. They're like, "We've been looking for you for years. We didn't know what happened to you. Also, are you a fan of Tupac?" He's like, "I love Tupac." They're like, "Do you know the song Brenda's Got a Baby?" "Of course I know the song Brenda's Got a Baby. We think you're the baby in Brenda's Got a Baby." He flies back to the housing projects where he was born. They show him the shoot where his mom threw him down. He poses with it. He meets all these relatives. It's this beautiful moment. He hasn't seen his mom in a gazillion years, like shortly after he was born. We decide we have to find the mom. My genealogist, Michelle Sully, thinks she has a number. She calls this woman. She goes, "Is this Janine?" I'm using a fake name. She goes, "Is this Janine?" She goes, "Yeah. Did you have a baby when you were 12 years old?" The woman starts screaming, "Do you know where my baby is? Do you know where my baby is?" She goes, "Well, my name is Michelle. I'm a genealogist. I'm working with Jeff Pearlman." "Oh my God, do you know where my baby is?" She's screaming and crying. Michelle says, the woman says, I need to take care of this. She goes, "I live in Newark, New Jersey, but I'm away because I'm going to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers." And Michelle says, "Where are the Chili Peppers playing?" And she said, "In Las Vegas." She goes, "Your son lives in Vegas." They met that night.
Wow. So how does that make you feel just as a person? Like aside from the book, aside from what we're talking about here, like that's like fundamentally shifting. That's like one of those events for them and probably for you as well.
It gives me chills, even telling that story right now, having told it several times already, to my relatives and friends. It's an amazing feeling. It's fantastic. It's one of the best. It's the best find I've ever been a part of in my career, by far.
Man, I have just questions about that. Like, how did the meeting go?
It was great. It was beautiful at first. In fact, she showed up and she hadn't seen the baby. She hadn't seen her son in years and years. She had visitation for a brief period of time after he was born where she was able to see him, and that was it. And she shows up. And when they were in the house, after she gave birth, they found her, brought her to the hospital, brought the baby to the hospital. They let her hold the baby and name the baby. And she actually named the baby Devon. She gave him his first name, and the adoptive parents kept the name. She shows up. They met in a casino in Vegas in the lobby, and she has his name tattooed on her arm, because she had just always been thinking about him from years and years ago, from decades ago. She tattooed his name on her arm, and they're just hugging and crying, and they talk through the night.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, if
Yep.
if that is what comes of the book, like that's a lot.
100% agree. 100% agree.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as far as Tupac goes, everybody thinks about him as being a West Coast guy, which isn't. I've known that. But that's not where he grew up, but that's where he became the Tupac that we know. Did Tupac consider himself a West Coast guy?
Yeah, he definitely did. Over time, he did. He basically before his senior year of high school, he went 2 years at School for the Arts in Baltimore, and he moves to Marin City, and he's very upset about it. And Marin City, he lives in it's called the Jungle, and he basically lives in public housing in Marin City. His mom dives heavy duty into crack, and while there, Tupac moves in with a kid his age named Demetrius Striplin, who's a DJ and just a nice guy who takes him in. And during that time period, Tupac is writing raps nonstop. And he's listening to Too Short and Ant Banks and all these Bay Area rappers, and he's absorbing it. But he has a moment near where he lives. They would have these rap battles, and he gets his ass kicked in a rap battle one day by this guy named Tack, who's like 13-year-old rapper, and he just demolishes Tupac. Tupac goes back to the apartment, and he's devastated, and he vanishes for a week. For 1 week, nobody sees Tupac. And basically, he spent the week hanging out with the biggest crack dealer in Marin City. And he asked the guy if he could follow him around. His name was Bobby Burton. If he could follow him around and just take notes about what it is to deal crack and to be a gangbanger and to be a badass in the inner city. And he comes back and he has a song written called All in the Days of a Criminal. And he raps it for his roommates immediately. And they're like, whoa. And it really did show. The guy was a student. And actually, it's one of the joys of this book was I spent a lot of time with the old crack dealers of Marin City. And like I went to a diner with Bobby Burton and his grandson. And this guy was the most terrifying crack dealer in Marin City. And we're sitting there eating eggs with his grandson. And it was a very full circle kind of moment for me as a reporter.
I'm assuming the grandson doesn't know his granddad as that crack dealer.
No, there was a lot of like this, a lot of like,
cover your ears.
all right, go listen over there. You go over there for a minute. Great guy, though. The guy was awesome. He was delightful. Yeah.
When you interview 650 plus people and they give you stories that, are exactly the opposite, how do you deal with that?
It's a lot of cross-checking. It's a lot of triple checking. It's also a lot of who has a history of being a reliable subject, who might exaggerate. One thing that I have found with Tupac, and I'm sure you've seen it also with celebrity young deaths, as the years pass, people who weren't that close to that person suddenly are amazingly close to that person. People who had 5 minutes with that person, spent hours with that person, So it is a lot of like checking and rechecking and double checking and just making sure someone says, no, this is a person you can trust. A trustworthy person telling you someone is trustworthy goes a long way.
What about the development of truth into like hyperbole and not for any other reason than time? That has to happen too, right?
Of course. And the truth of the matter is, biography is a flawed medium to a small degree, right? My book before this was about Bo Jackson. Most of what Bo Jackson did athletically wasn't recorded. You know, he was timed running a 4.1340. I can see the notation for the 4.1340 in the Auburn log. Do I know for a 1,000,000,000,000,000% fact that it wasn't 4.2340? I don't. Like, part of this is believing what is written and believing stories that are reputable. It's a flaw. There's no doubt. The other flaw of biography is you can't be in the person's head. So Tupac is walking down the street. Tupac is in the MGM Grand and he sees Orlando Anderson and he goes, punch him. I'm thinking he's probably thinking, oh, crap, I got to punch this guy. Before I know, he's thinking about the Jets quarterback situation. You know, you can't be in someone's head. It's the hardest part of biography by far is you can't be in someone's head.
I would think too, when you are writing a story on a dead legend, which is what Tupac is, you want to make sure you get the good, the bad, the middle, the background, all. But when it's something uncomfortable like a rape accusation, like how did you deal with that?
I had something, I haven't even talked about this yet, but you know, it's in the book. I found, all right, so the rape accusation was obviously tough, and I reported it and reported it and reported it, and I found people who were around there and different people. But the interesting thing is 4 months before that happened, another woman accused Tupac of rape. It's never been reported before. And I found the police reports that were filed. And it happened at a club in LA. It was a woman who was celebrating her 21st birthday. I found a redacted police report and then an unredacted police report. So I had all the names. And I found this woman, and she needed a ride home. She was 21. She was at a club in LA. She was out with her friends. Her friends kind of ditched her. She had been talking with Tupac and his crew. They offered her a ride home. She was staying with her boyfriend, who was a football player at USC. They, instead of going home, according to her, Tupac's like, we got to stop at the house real quick. He had a house not far away. She said, according to her, she said, just come in for a minute. Just come in. He goes in. She said he had a gun on his like bookshelf and said he raped her. And then he said one of his friends drove her home and also forced her to have sex. So I got this police report, and I know I have to try to talk to this woman, right? And this was 4 months before the incident at Nell's in New York City involving Ayanna Jackson. It's 4 months before. I have this police report. I'm writing a biography. I know for a fact Tupac fans do not want to read this, right? If you're a Tupac fan, you understandably want to believe that Tupac wouldn't have done such a thing, was innocent. But I feel responsibility to biography more than I feel responsibility to pleasing fans and selling books, if that makes sense. I have this police report. I have the name. I find the woman. I reach out to her. At first, she tells me it's all true, but she's like, I don't want to talk about it. And when I found a few months later, I reached out to her again and I said, I'm just curious, do you have any interest in seeing the police report? Like, do you want to see it? And she said, yeah, actually I do. And I sent it to her and she called me back and she's like, okay, I want to talk to you because this is making me really mad. And basically what happened is everything she said, she swore happened. All these years later, anonymous. She had no reason to lie or not. Like, there was no incentive for her to lie. She's a 50-year-old woman now living not in California. But she said after she filed the report, the officer who was going to decide whether to go, the detective was going to decide whether to follow through with the charges, said, why didn't you run away when you had a chance to run away? And she's like, I was drunk and scared. And they're basically like, no, you had a chance to run away and you didn't run away. And they didn't pursue it. And she was so mad reliving that she talked to me at length about it. Now, she talked to me anonymously, which is fair because it's a rape case. So that's knowing that he had a very similar incident. There are a lot of parallels between what happened to this woman in LA, what happened to Ayanna Jackson in New York. So that's a big part of the reporting of it.
I would think that the human nature part of writing a biography would be, and I'm glad you spoke on that, it feeling like you have an allegiance to the biography more than the fans of Tupac. That if you're writing about Tupac, you want his fans to buy the book. So I'm sure that there's a part of you that's like, man, if I just don't write about this, I think more people want to buy the book because it's just a glowing part of Tupac. I mean, is that an internal struggle that a writer like yourself would have to deal with?
It is not, but I understand why it would be. I just long ago, starting at the University of Delaware and as a news writer at the Nashville Tennessean, like that's not how I think. Like probably maybe to my own financial detriment. I just don't think, oh man, I have to. This is going to be Tupac fans are going to love this. I want a historic record of Tupac. The goal is always, and I'm not saying it's always achieved. The goal is someone reads your Tupac book and they say, well, there's no other reason to write a Tupac book. Like what? There's nothing more. There's no other reason to write a Tupac book. And I'm not saying that's real, but that's kind of your goal. And I can't, I'm not a fan writer. I'm not writing for Teen Beat or Bop or whatever it would be in 2025. I'm just not that guy. So it is what it is.
You're a white guy writing about a hip hop artist. I don't know. That's weird, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. My agent, it's my first non-sports book. It's obviously my first hip hop book. Yeah, no doubt about it. My agent was like, do you really think you're the guy to write this book? And the truth of the matter is, this is weird but true. The writer Kevin Powell had on his website for years, next book, a Tupac book, right? For years. And I kind of just assumed Kevin Powell was going to write this Tupac book and I was just not going to write it. But he never did it. And I wanted the book where 650 people were interviewed about Tupac. I didn't want the book, why Tupac is the greatest rapper of all time, or Tupac and Me, My Wild Adventures. Like I wanted the book about Tupac. So I know I'm white. I come from an outsider's view. I tried to be honest about it and open about it and do my best.
Whenever I think about hip hop in the 90s, even late 80s, 2000s, right? Because that was like my time. And I think about the rappers that were, I'd call the best culturally and also, but then the best, like that sounded the best. Like for me, it was always like Biggie always sounded the best, but Tupac meant more to the culture. And I grew up in not a white neighborhood. So I was never like Tupac sounds better than Biggie, but he says more than Biggie. Although Biggie did say a lot because Biggie had stories too, right? Like he's doing his thing East Coast. What are your thoughts on my possibly incorrect narrative?
Okay, I think Shock G from Digital Underground said it perfectly. He has passed away, but when he was live, he said a lot of rappers rap. I'm going to paraphrase. He said a lot of rappers rap from the nose. Some rappers rap from the lips. Some rappers rap from the throat. And he said Tupac rap from the stomach, where it was guttural, And the only other rapper, really great rapper who could compare to that is DMX, where it's like you feel it and you feel every word. And there's a song Tupac has. It's probably my favorite Tupac song. It's called "Shorty Wanna Be a Thug." And it's just about a 16-year-old kid who's trying to, gangbanger. And you just feel every word of it. Like you feel every word of it. And I think about rappers who came up alongside Tupac. Biggie was a great rapper. He was a brilliant, brilliant lyricist. His delivery was flawless. It was beautiful. It was almost symphonic in how beautiful his rapping was, but it wasn't guttural, And I feel like with Tupac, he was able to relate to people and make people feel what he was saying, not just by the words, which were powerful, but by the way he said it. I think he was very unique in that regard.
And the reason that I compare the two, obviously, is because the whole East Coast, West Coast, and how that tragically ended. How much of that started as wrestling and ended real, or was it all real?
Well, it started at Quad Studios, and Tupac is going to Quad Studios, and Tupac is on trial in New York, and at the same time, an artist named Little Sean is putting together an album, and Tupac needs money. Tupac died he had less than $200,000 in his bank account when he died. Like he did not have a lot of money, and he has the legal fees and everything's mounting, and he's going to go to Quad Studios and record a track for Little Sean, and he's getting paid, this is crazy, $7,000. That's how much Tupac was going to Quad Studios to do a track for some guy, Little Sean. So he's going there, and he pulls up, and he gets out, and he's in the lobby, and he gets shot, and he gets robbed, and he gets shot, and he goes upstairs, and there's Biggie, and there's Lil Cease. He was down in the elevator, and these guys are there, And Tupac at that moment, forevermore, believes that either Biggie was directly responsible for it, or if nothing else, I'm in New York City. This is your city. How could you, in this building, how could you not know? And I interviewed a lot of guys who were in prison with Tupac at Clinton, and he did not let that go. He held that tight. Biggie did this. I know Biggie did this. That MFer did this. He wrote lyrics about it. He was so angry about it, irrationally so, that when he got out, and then he writes hit him up, obviously, and it just inflames everything. So I don't think Biggie tried visiting Tupac in the hospital. He tried visiting him again at Clinton, literally called his manager, Watani, and said, I want to go visit Pac. And Tupac said, no, I'm not seeing that guy. I think Biggie was dumbfounded the whole time. Why am I getting blamed for all this? But Tupac saw it as a certainty.
Then, okay, let's just say it wasn't Biggie. Who do we think it was? Puffy?
I mean, most of the eyes point to Haitian Jack, who took Tupac kind of under his wing. He was actually Tupac's muse for Above the Rim when he played Birdie. And then they started having this growing divide, and Tupac started calling him out as a hanger-on. There's a lot, but there's no certainty. There is no certainty. I will say one thing that was interesting, what I did find for the book. So Tupac was shot, it was always noted incorrectly. He was shot 3 times, in the head, in the hand, in the testicles, it went into his leg. And for years, there were always these rumors that that Tupac shot himself in the balls. And I found the first EMT to ever get to Tupac, and he'd never been interviewed before. And he's like, "Wow, how'd you find me?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I found him he was listed in one little article, this guy, and I tracked him down. The first EMT to get to Tupac, he's sitting there in Quad Studios. The EMT comes up, he gets out, Tupac is there. He has a bullet lodged in his head between the skin and the skull. It was this close from penetrating his brain. Instead, skin. It was embedded in. The guy said he never saw it like that before. It's shot in the hand, and Tupac pulls down his trousers. He's wearing jeans, and his boxer briefs. And he sees there's a hole in his testicle, but there's no entrance area, right? There's no gunpowder residue, and there's no entrance shot through the jeans or the underwear. And the guy said to me, he had to have shot himself in the balls because he did have the gun here. He used to carry his gun in the waistband, and there was no entrance wound from outside, no entrance mark from outside. So he's like, I've known for years that he shot himself in the balls. And it was a debate for years and years in hip hop. How did Tupac shoot himself? Who shot Tupac? Blah, blah, blah. And the one was in the balls.
Okay, so if he got shot in the head, because I hear hand, and then I heard balls, obviously, and then head. But if you get shot in the head, they're trying to kill you. If you get shot in the hand and the balls only, they're trying to scare or hurt you. When Tupac was shot, were they trying to kill him?
I honestly don't know. I just don't know. You have to admit sometimes you don't know. I don't know the intent because I don't know who shot him. Like, I don't know who shot him. So I don't know. I think they were probably trying to rob him and scare him, and Tupac didn't just, he didn't just cower, which you're supposed to do. He never did. So I don't know for sure, though.
Of all the
just
people,
being honest.
all the people that you've interviewed, I'm sure there's a takeaway with each person probably that gives you perspective you've never had because, right, you're basically getting as close inside of someone's life as you can get without actually being in their life. What about studying Tupac made you look at life a bit different?
I mean, you asked earlier about being a white writer, and I think you go into a subject and you think you understand a perspective, and then you realize you don't understand a perspective at all. And to me, truly, obviously, I've seen poverty. I've never lived in poverty, but I've seen poverty in the different athletes I've written about. I feel like Tupac's sister literally describing the sound of the rats scurrying up and down the baseboard in their Baltimore row house pad, digging into food and eating their food, and her saying how haunted she was by that all these years later. I feel like that her describing the level of poverty that they emerged from was deeper and more profound and more painful than my experience writing about people who rise from impoverished situations. And I think it was important for me.
What is your feelings on Suge Knight after you finished the book on Tupac?
Terrible. Absolutely. Suge Knight, to me, I put Suge Knight in a trio. If he were starting a doo-wop group, it would be him, it'd be Don King, and it'd be Donald Trump. Guys who just take advantage of people. He goes to Clinton to bail Tupac out. I'm going to bail you out. So I think it was 1.6 million bail. Tupac thinks this is money that Suge is giving him. It's not. It's advanced earnings. And I'll tell you a great, truly great Suge Knight story. Two real quick emblematic Suge Knight stories. Number one, Tupac is filming Gang Related, the movie with Jim Belushi. One day, Suge Knight shows up on set with a car as a gift for Tupac, which he was prone to do. He would lavish him with gifts, material possessions. And he shows up, and the whole crew is they stop filming. And, yo, Pac, I just want to thank you for all you're doing for the Death Row family. This is amazing, blah, 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 blah. I want to give you this car. Bro, this is for you. They hug. Suge leaves. Tupac turns to the assistant producer and says, this isn't mine. Like, what do you mean? I don't own this. I don't own anything. Like, all the cars I have, they're all leased. The place I live, leased. I don't own anything. My entire life is controlled. Number two, Tupac dies in Las Vegas after the Mike Tyson-Bruce Seldon fight a week later. The family, Suge is there in Vegas. He was obviously driving the car. He's there kind of hanging around the family. He promises the family he'll take care of Tupac's ashes. Tupac is cremated. Couple of days later, a FedEx delivery guy shows up where Tupac was living and all the family had congregated in LA with a cardboard FedEx 2-day delivery box with Tupac's ashes in it. That is how Suge Knight handled the delivery of Tupac's ashes.
Dang, that doesn't sound like a good dude at all.
That's not the best. He did play 3 games. Did play 3 games for the Los Angeles Replacement Rams in 1987, which makes me smile.
I always think when I hear of people that were just like awful people, I always go back to what their origin stories are and what made them, like what affected their lives in such a tragic way that made them so tragic. And I know you didn't write a book on Suge Knight, but how did Suge Knight become such an awful person?
I dug a lot into Suge Knight. Suge Knight is from Compton, grew up in a very stable household. You know, his name is Marion Knight. His nickname is Suge because they said he looked like the Sugar Bear from the cereal box. So it went from Sugar Bear to Suge. Very good household. Played in the marching band. Played drums in the marching band. High school football games. He'd play in the games. Halftime, he'd go and play drums in his football uniform in the marching band. Go back and play football. Went to El Camino College for 2 years. Was a junior college All-American as a defensive lineman. Goes to UNLV. While he's at UNLV, he starts doing work on the Strip as a bodyguard and kind of likes it. Winds up going into the music business, working for Dick Griffey for a while. And he works with Bobby Brown as a bodyguard for Bobby Brown. And I think the thing with him, like I interviewed a lot of guys from Compton who grew up with Suge. And universally, it wasn't that they liked or disliked Suge, but they were like, that guy wasn't a gangbanger. This one guy, Mob James McDonald, who grew up in Compton with Suge, is like, he had a quote, I don't remember exactly. He was like, Suge wasn't wearing a bandana. Suge wasn't carrying. He was like, he said he was soft as raw blank, Val, like he was just, but he was of Compton, but he wasn't of Compton. Like he wasn't a Crip. He wasn't carrying, he wasn't a Blood. He wasn't carrying. But he built this image based on size, based on wanting to be a sort of mafioso figure in music, having this image. Death Row, his line was, you either make a hit or you get hit. And one guy he hired told me he's get hired by Suge. Suge walks him to the window inside Death Row. And he says, look out that window. And he goes, all right. He goes, just so you know, we don't fire guys who don't perform. We throw them out windows. And there's just a million stories of Suge Knight making people kneel naked, drink urine, making people kneel naked, apologize, hitting people, punching people. They kept baseball bats in the closet. It wasn't for a company picnic. It was to beat the crap out of people. He just went from seeing what it was to be tough to deciding I want to be tough.
I just wonder where that inferiority complex comes from. Because again, I look at every villain, even in movies, or even like the worst people in real life and go, there's something that triggered that. And for me, I don't believe unless there's some sort of chemical hormonal thing that people are just born bad. I think there's trauma. And with Suge Knight, I've always, wondered like, what about Suge? Cause I'd heard the story. I think I've seen a picture of him playing in the high school band in his uniform. Yep. that I'm like, what
Mm.
made him? Because even the Vanilla Ice story that he tells about Suge Knight hanging him off the ledge, because
Yeah.
it's crazy. I know this is not a Suge Knight interview. I have two questions. How did Tupac not have money?
Well, first of all, all right. Well, a really telling part of this is he's in prison, and the main woman who took care of him, who's one of the best people I've ever met, is this woman Yasmin Fula, who is both his business manager, a former Panther, kind of an aunt, godmother-like figure, and she would visit him every week in prison, and she would always come with family requests. Right? Your mom wants a new house. Your cousin needs this. Your other cousin needs this. And it's a classic tale of a guy always coming from nothing and all of a sudden always giving to everyone. Second of all, he never made that much money. Poetic Justice, Janet Jackson made $2 million. I think Tupac may have made 100,000. I don't remember the exact amount. He was never, Juice, he made $17,000. He was never in a huge movie. All Eyes on Me, Death Row, kept a ton of money and then was paying his legal bills. He had legal fees out the butt nonstop. So he just never had a great stream of income coming to him, just period. And all the stuff he quote unquote owned, he actually only owned one car. Every other car he ever had was leased.
Does his estate have a lot of money now?
I think they're doing pretty well. I mean, the estate they're not bad or anything, but they weren't super friendly with this book. But I'm sure they do. They own a lot of rights. Every time you buy a Tupac shirt in Walmart or Target, you're giving money to the estate. That's not a criticism. That's just a reality. So I think they're doing pretty well.
That's kind of
Fanny's not allowed.
Yeah, that's kind of bizarre that after the death, most of the money's made.
The thing I don't like, again, it's a judgment. I'm not saying I'm right. I don't love you go into Target and there's like a $9 made in some sweatshop in some, poor country shirt with Tupac on it. I just think Tupac, it's a guess. I really think he would have hated that. I don't think he would have liked that.
My final question is mostly about you. I remember you doing the TikToks of you talking, but also being in like a coffee shop. I don't know which one, it was Starbucks or whatever it was. I don't know. But you would have stacks and stacks of papers and you'd have your laptop. And I just picture like at home, it's like a beautiful mind. You've got strings going from articles. And because again, that's so much information. How accurate is it that you were just, it was papers everywhere?
I do not have a beautiful mind, but it is papers everywhere. It is, I call it my crack den of paper. It's just like nonstop and folders because I print everything out because I'm old enough that I still do that. And I like outlining and underlining and this and that. So it's like, where's that? Where's that thing? Where's that? It's more Nutty Professor, I think, than Beautiful Mind, where shoveled and lost. But yeah, it's kind of, now all that stuff is in my garage. My wife is like, can we get rid of it? And I'm like, not yet, but soon.
Okay, last question. And it could be really stupid, but did you ever want to try crack since you wrote so much about it?
No, I did not.
Okay, listen, I don't know. Maybe you did.
I'll tell you what I wanted to try. There are two things I haven't tried yet. I've only smoked weed a handful of times in my life. I'm just not that guy. And I'm not a big drinker. I still haven't tried Hennessy. I'd like to try Hennessy. And I've never smoked a blunt. And I'd like to smoke a blunt. But I will tell you, Bobby, and this is cool. My daughter, Casey, who's in college, for Father's Day last year, gave me, because there's a line in a Tupac song, I can picture you in heaven with a blunt and a brew from God Bless the Dead. She got me a beer and she couldn't find a blunt, but she got me a joint and gave it for Father's Day last year. Because I used to always say, I can picture you in heaven with a blunt and a brew. So that was kind of a funny gift.
But no crack. All right. Well, hey, I thought you'd be the kind of guy to
fully... If you want to do it together, I'm in.
Jeff, I really appreciate the time. And here's the thing. The book, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur. If you're hearing this before it's out, because it comes out on the 21st, you can order it. It'll be at your door on the 21st. If you're hearing this after, the book is out now. Okay, final question. Did you become more or less of a fan of the person after writing the book?
More, because it's the same thing with everyone I write about. I love the complexities of people, and I love the journeys of people. And actually, it is interesting. The books that are just glowing portraits of people, I don't think they actually make you more of a fan. They just reinforce your fandom. But when you learn about what someone went through, the hardships, the troubles, the highs, the lows, the horrible moments, the great moments, I almost think it has to make you more of a fan because you can appreciate the struggle. So that's where I sit.
Jeff, appreciate the time, man. Good luck. I hope you sell tons and tons of books.